Slimehouse TV, myself Theo Kane, hope everybody is good. Hold tight to Slime Alliance if you're watching this a little bit more in advance, and welcome back to Toy Talk Tuesday. So in today's episode, I want to talk about a toy line that were a pretty monumental part of my toy hunting journey growing up. They were the reasons for me ever going to a toy fair for the first time ever as a kid, and they're also my first introduction into meeting people and finding out about people that were big time toy collectors and big time vintage toy hunters. Now this is a toy line that was the first of its kind. It's instantly recognisable, and although it went off around the world eventually and got lots of different names, the version that we had here in England almost became like a staple of British culture. I'm talking of course about this guy, Action Man. Now there's so many different eras of Action Man that I could talk about, and because I'm such a fan of all of it, it is hard for me to try and pick one single range to focus on, but today I've decided I'm going to concentrate on a particular series of Action Man that came out in the late 70s and early 1980s. This is a time when Star Wars toys were still super fresh and popular, all the kids were very much on a space adventure vibe, and it was only a matter of time before Action Man got that same sci-fi treatment. See, up until that point, apart from a few exceptions, Action Man was very much grounded in reality. His outfits for the most part were military uniforms and other action-based sets that actually existed in real life, but when Palitoy released the Space Rangers line, everything kids thought that they knew about the brand was completely flipped on its head, and all of a sudden we had this awesome cosmic version of him. Now, as a lot of you might know because I've mentioned it in various videos in the past, as a kid my dad was a big time toy dealer and collector. In fact, most of the stuff that I'm showing in today's video came directly from my dad's old collection. So toy collecting, buying, selling, swapping, toy fair hunting is all very much something that was part of my day-to-day life as a kid. One of the main things that my dad collected though was vintage OG Action Men. This is a toy that was always in my house growing up. If I wasn't surrounded by the ones in the display cabinets, I was helping my dad piece together the half-assembled ones that were all over the dining room table. So although I was born in 1988 and Action Man is a toy line that's normally associated with kids that played with them a whole generation before me, they're a toy line that to me personally are still super nostalgic, and that face, that classic Action Man eagle-eyed face is so familiar to me, it's almost like seeing an old super close family friend when I look at it. This is also one of the reasons why I'm such an Action Man and action figure era whore. I love all of it because I was raised around all of it, but even though I'm such a fan of all of the different releases, one of my favourite incarnations of Action Man is when he went to space, so that's what I want to take a look at in today's video.
Danger! The evil Captain Zargon has captured an Action Man Space Ranger. Space Captain to the rescue in the multi-role Space Speeder, which quickly converts into a two-seater space jet. Saved, thanks to the Space Rangers of Action Man.
Do-digga-do-digga-digga-do-do. Tell me that is not an absolute bop. So this guy right here is the first ever Action Man that was released in the Space Rangers line. The Space Ranger Captain, leader of the Space Rangers Patrol. He was also the only figure to be released in this blue latex rubber jumpsuit, which, as you can see after all these years, really has not stood the test of time. I've seen this exact same thing happen with Steve Austin's $6 Million Man arms with vintage Halloween masks. It is a real shame, and it often seems that no matter what you do to try and keep them from deteriorating, at some point they are just going to dry up and crumble and turn to dust like this one has, to a point that like this suit is now so hard and withered that the guy is almost encased inside it now. One cool thing though that I found out after watching Toypoloy's video on it is that there is a guy that actually owns the original mould that was used to create these spacesuits. And after asking around a few different Facebook groups, I managed to track him down and he agreed to create me one. Now, I'm never against reproduction items in my collection. I don't really have too many, but I really don't mind adding them to my collection if it completes a figure, especially if it's for something like this that's just like near impossible to try and find an original that's not deteriorated. And because this guy has the original mould, what he can do is paint up layers of latex in whatever colour you want, peel it off in reverse, and then you've got an exact replica of the original costume that was made for Action Man. So it took a week or so for him to create it after I'd put my order in, and it arrived yesterday, and I must say I'm very impressed with the final result. Check that bad boy! It's an ever so slightly different shade to the original one, but I'm not complaining. I think it looks absolutely awesome, and the fact that it's made from the original mould, in my opinion, makes it not even feel like a reproduction, even though it obviously is one. Now I'm not going to put it on an Action Man today, I'm going to save that for a future video. He can also make them in any colour that you like, so I'm tempted to get some more different colour versions of him in the future, but for now I'm just happy to own this original looking blue one. It's also going to be nice to get this suit and put it on a figure and having it looking as good as it looked when my dad originally put it together. See, these are from a collection that my dad loved and looked after for years, so now that they've been passed on to me, if I can keep them looking the best they can look for another 20, 30, 40 years, then I feel like it's my duty to do that. Now just looking back at the figure, we can see that it came with this real cheap cloth tabard, something that they'd improve on later. He's also got these really simple oven mitt looking gloves that almost look like something that you would use for medieval sword forging or glass blowing. I can see some Victorian dudes shoveling coal into a steam train wearing these, certainly not something that I'd associate with a Space Ranger. They are at least silver though, so they do kinda still look a bit spacey. These gloves though and a tabard, like the blue latex suit, would all be stuff that they would do away with on later releases. The creators must have at least been happy with the blaster and the helmet though, because they were here to stay, and in my opinion they kinda become like a staple look of all the Action Man Space Rangers in the releases moving forward. I've also got this guy to take a look at, the Space Ranger Patroller. Now this was sold as a separate outfit, and I've seen it sold with the rubber suit and also with this cloth overall as well, which doesn't quite look as spacey, but it definitely is better for displaying because it doesn't deteriorate like the rubber one does. Also, whereas the rubber one had the feet built into it, this one is sold rocking the classic Action Man gloves and boots that again became like a staple look of all of the Space Rangers moving forward. Now this is a uniform that was put out when they were still making these really cheap school dinner lady looking tabards. But one thing that was really cool about them was the way that they came with these little custom numbers that you could peel off and stick on the uniforms and give them different numbers to identify them, which was not only cool for kids because they got to customise their toys even in a little minor way, but it was also clever marketing from Palitoy because it made kids want to buy more and army build loads of them. Now this guy here in my opinion is the classic go-to Space Ranger Action Man whenever I think of this line, the Space Ranger's talking commander, and I feel that by this point they'd really nailed the look and the quality of what an Action Man Space Ranger needed to be. They'd got rid of that cheap tabard, which I didn't hate even though I'm firing shots at it, I just know how much better this one looks. It's made from a cool moulded pullover plastic that locks with press studs to keep it in place and also has a built-in blaster holster. The helmet was now made in black, and overall I just think that in terms of an Action Man space cosmonaut, they absolutely nailed it with this look. And because he's a talking commander, he's also got this cord in his back that you can pull, and even after all these years, he still speaks super clear.
We're under attack. All units stand by.
Around this time, Palitoy also released these separate weapons packs, so the majority of the figures that I've got here are displayed with at least one of the awesome sci-fi looking rifles that came in them. Now aesthetically, these guns do blend in with the line perfectly, but then you try and put one of them inside the gloved hand of a Space Ranger and it's a whole different ball game. Trying to get one of these guys to hold one of these guns is like pulling teeth. You see, it's almost like these gloves were created for a completely different line and then just thrown into an Action Man set, and that they were never meant to hold these guns anyway. Well, that's because that's exactly what they were. You see, these gloves were never even made for Action Man. They were originally released as part of the Steve Austin's $6 Million Man Mission to Mars astronaut set, and years later were just added to these Action Man sets because they were space themed and it saved them having to sculpt a whole new set from scratch. And the fact that they didn't even properly fit on the Action Man's hands or hold any of the guns or the rifles didn't really matter, and the kids probably wouldn't notice. So it's funny that I was saying earlier how these gloves and these boots, in my opinion, are like an iconic look for the Action Man Space Ranger line, even though they weren't originally even made for an Action Man and they belonged to Steve Austin in an astronaut set that came out years before him. Now, one thing that I've always found with collectors of OG vintage Action Man is that it's not uncommon for people to customise their collections in their own way. I find that everyone's individual collection is always personally curated to a way that they want it. You would find collectors add extra bits to the figures that came from other sets, or they would dye outfits and repaint helmets to create different factions of an army, or maybe even put entire uniforms together for a figure that Palitoy never released. And just like kids would mix and match parts to create their own bespoke outfits from their imagination, adult collectors of Action Man don't seem too much different. So these are a few that my dad put together out of spare parts and random bits that we would have found when buying big Action Man lots back in the day. And they're all cool in their own unique way. Each one has used different parts from incomplete figures to in turn create a complete figure, but I think this one's definitely my favourite. It's got that original cheap cloth pullover tabard, but that's been combined with the Steve Austin gloves and boots. And then instead of an overall, it's got a fireman outfit from the original Action Man Crash Crew range. It all looks very silver, very spacey, and he's even spray painted a helmet silver to complete the look of the outfit. So although this is just a real small example of the kind of outfits that my dad and other Action Man collectors that he knew would put together, I feel like it still gives you a nice vibe of the kind of thing that you would see dotted around a general Action Man collector's display cabinet. Outfits that had been put together using various parts from different sets to create whole new uniforms and characters. And honestly, back then and still to this day, I've always thought it was awesome. Now when it comes to the Action Man Space Rangers line, there's so many different cool releases that we could delve into. Vehicles, Captain Zargon, the Intruder and Gargon, Rom the Space Knight, but I'm going to leave them all for a future video because I don't want to cram everything into this one. But hopefully in this first video today, if you wasn't too familiar with the line, I've helped shine a bit of light on it for you. And if you're somebody that grew up with these toys and remember playing with them as a kid, I've helped bring back a few memories with the stuff that I've covered here so far. Like I've said from the start of this video, Action Man is a line that's very much in my blood. I was raised around it, and I've got lots of other videos planned covering various Action Man releases in the future. So I hope that you're looking forward to more videos like this because we've definitely got a lot to cover. Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you did enjoy it, then don't forget to give it a like. And if you haven't already, if you're new to the channel, then please do subscribe. I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV, and every single week we talk toys here. On a Tuesday, we do Toy Talk Tuesday episodes, and we've got an awesome toy community. So if you want to become a part of that, then hit that subscribe button and introduce yourself in the comments below. I'd also like to know your thoughts on today's video, and if there's any other toys that you'd like to see me discuss in a future video, like I said, I've got lots of Action Man to cover, but if there's anything else that you want to see me cover in a future video, any toy lines, any topics that you'd like to see us discuss, then again, let me know in the comments below and we'll try and feature them on an episode of Toy Talk Tuesday. If you don't want to comment publicly, but you want to hit me up in the DMs, the best place to do that is over on Instagram at Theo_Kane_Slimehouse. That's also the social media that I'm the most active on, and I post lots of exclusive content on there as well, so that's the best place to follow me if you want to keep up to date with anything else that we've got going on here on Slimehouse TV. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, you can also watch these videos in advance by joining the Slime Alliance tier over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Slimehouse TV. There's a couple of different tiers on there, but they all really do help put money back into Slimehouse TV and help me make this channel bigger and better than ever. In the meantime, like I said, I'm Theo Kane. This is Slimehouse TV. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one. Until then, I'm gone. Pow!